Welcome to the Connecting with Coincidence radio show with Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, bringing together the world's synchronicity experts to help you use meaningful coincidences to develop spiritually, psychologically, and practically. For more information, put Connecting with Coincidence into your web browser to find the book, website, Psychology Today blog, YouTube channel, and Facebook page. And now, here is the host of the Connecting with Coincidence radio show, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD.
Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. Yes, I am your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, and we are here to connect you with your own personal coincidences. And the best way to do that is to tell each other your coincidence stories. Today, we talk about how to use your coincidences to help you navigate COVID-19. To start with, I received this story from Kim Sawyer in Australia. Thank you, Kim. In March of this year, right around the time the virus was taking hold in the world, a car was parked in the staff parking lot of the Adelaide, Australia airport. It was covered for a while, and then the winds blew off the cover, revealing an expensive car, a fancy BMW. They thought it must have been a pilot's car, but they didn't know. And the car is still sitting there today with no claim of ownership. The license plate on the car says COVID-19. If you want the link to this article, email me through the link on my website, Connecting with Coincidence. I'd like to hear how you explain it and how you think it happened and what do you think it means? Our guest today is Terje Simonsen, who is a Norwegian historian of ideas and a nonfiction author specializing in the esoteric and occult. Simonsen has published essays on I and Thou, the mystically inspired main work of the philosopher Martin Buber. He is educated in Gestalt therapy, psychosynthesis, and his varied career has included lots of different things, including being in my business, psychiatry, kindergarten, somehow, past when he was growing up, museums, security, catering, a lot of different things. Today he works as a freelance writer. Since his childhood, Simonsen has been fascinated by magical phenomena such as telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, and distance healing. An interest based on peculiar experiences of his own life, as well as strange stories told him by friends and family. The result is an entertaining, colorful, and multifaceted book called A Short History of Nearly Everything Paranormal, which has recently received the esteemed Parapsychological Association Book Award. Welcome to the show, Terje.
Thanks a lot, Bernie.
It's a pleasure to talk to you at this time, particularly because the world is facing some major problems, as everyone knows, around the virus and global warming, among other things, major conflicts among and between people. And we need to be reaching beyond what we think of as our regular ways of doing things and trying some other possibilities.
Yes.
And yes, and those possibilities include some of what you have written about in the history of what we can call superpower or magical things happening all over the world for many, many centuries. So how did you come to be writing this book at around this time, before the virus started?
I will be honest with you. The Norwegian book was written some years ago, so it's not linked to the current crisis at all. It, as you stated initially, I had some experiences when I was a child, and also trusted family members told me about strong telepathic connections and such things. So, and as I grew older, I met a woman also kind of a girlfriend, sweetheart, and she also impressed me with what we could call intuitive faculties that transcended the normal, just being good in psychology thing. So I studied also the esoteric traditions because I found that there were a long historical tradition for describing such phenomena, and then I started to study parapsychology after that, the science about these phenomena. So and I also have written about other things, as you said, Martin Buber, because that's how you meet other people between and also I come from a Christian background, and I've written some about old, say, theologically interesting text as well. And I also liked to write, really. So it became quite naturally for me to sum up all my, say, forays into this area in a book at some time.
I think there's a lot of practicality in what you're writing about, and what you've written about falls under the general category of coincidence, which includes what you've written about, but also some other things. And one of the ways that we can use coincidences is to keep going and help us make decisions and point us in directions. And you had an experience as a writer trying to get a loan. That's quite a good story. Could you tell us what happened there? Because this coincidence, which is really hard to explain, help you do the book that we're talking about.
Yeah, a very interesting thing. I had been ill for a while, so I was short of money, and I was thinking, should I register as a student to get a student loan, which is quite easy to get here in Norway because the state supports them, or should I, say, take the road less traveled and go for writing a book? And then I had to ask the Writers Guild to get a grant from them, and that's quite much more difficult, really. And after pondering this decision for 2 or 3 months, I was very tired at that time, and I eventually decided to go for the student loan. And then I sent an SMS to a kind of phone company where they give you the numbers for different both persons and firms, and I asked via the SMS, I asked for the number for the bank giving out the student loans. But when the answer came back, it was not the number for the bank. It was the number for the Writers Guild.
Now that's quite a surprise.
Yes.
That's quite a surprise. Here you had in mind a question about whether to go for the student loan or to go to the Writers Guild, which is a much more difficult process. You decided to go for the loan, and magically there showed up an answer to your question, the Writers Guild instead of the bank. And that kind of mix-up, let me say, in telecommunication, in text messaging, and also in phone calls, getting the wrong number sometimes is just the right number, and that's what happened with you.
Definitely. So I applied the Writers Guild for this loan, for this grant. I didn't get it in the first round, but the second round I got it, and then I started writing the book, which now have eventually also gone international.
Well, this illustrates what people now in the midst of this crisis can do, because you were guided somehow, and we don't know really how, to make a decision that ended up, among other things, you and I talking together here.
Yes.
Among other things, I mean, the award you got and other things. Second edition of the book. But there was a major decision point in your life that was guided by a coincidence that we can explain in all kinds of ways that people can pick up to do. And yet, there it was. The meaning of the coincidence for you personally was quite important, no matter how we think about how it happened. So how would you apply this idea to people in the midst of this crisis and decision making?
Yeah, of course, it's a very tough question because, as you say, it was a major decision for me, but a COVID decision could be about life and death. So I will, of course, be very careful to say give specific guidelines for anything. But the last chapter of my book is much about, or it's a large section there about using your intuition. And as you say, if you have a focused attention on some question that is important for you, and you have that focus, say for quite a period of time, you invest lots of energy in it, you create, I think, you start creating those connections via the subconscious mind with other people and with, say, events that are somehow related to that theme you are into and want an answer for. So my advice would just be to have focus on this and listen extremely carefully to your intuition, and be silent. That is quite easy these days for many people, a bit too easy perhaps because of lockdown many places, but to listen to the nuances and say, be very in tune with your gut and listen really to what it tells you. People are, yeah, sorry.
Very good. And we will continue this in our next segment because it's so important. We are looking at how to use coincidences during this time, talking with Terje Simonsen, the author of A Short History of Nearly Everything Paranormal. Welcome back to CC with BB, Connecting with Coincidence. I'm talking with Terje Simonsen and about how to use coincidences in decision-making during the COVID-19 pandemic. And you were talking in our last segment, Terje, about how to tune in to your intuition and to keep in mind what you want to have happen. And I'm not so much asking us to talk about life and death decisions that could be involved here. I'm talking about day-to-day decisions. And
yes,
because it's really hard to live day-to-day in this current environment because it's so different from the way it used to be. And you talk about tuning into intuition, and you talk about keeping ideas that you are important to you in mind. Could you keep telling us about what you mean here? What you mean by intuition? What do you mean by being silent? Because intuition is still a new idea in Western thinking. I mean, it isn't, but really it needs to be expanded rather than being so rational. So please talk about intuition and keeping a goal clearly in mind.
Yes, my perspective on intuition, which is say more in tune or in step with the esoteric traditions, is what can I say? You draw on resources that is not usually available for the rational mind. Nothing wrong about rationality, but still it's a limited approach to decisions. There is a psychology professor in Netherlands. His name is Dijkster, and he's written also for Harvard Business Review, and he's won lots of awards. And he say that you process about, I think it's about 100,000 times more bits of information via your subconscious mind than via your just say conscious ego. So if you ponder decisions, you should draw on these resources, of course. And as both you and me are open to, I think you also really connect to the psychosphere via intuition. You can take things from what I call the mental internet. If people are somehow on a deep level connected together, you have via your intuition also access to other people's thoughts and feelings, and somehow we connect resources on a deeper level. So by tuning into intuition, for instance, if you do some yoga, some autogenic training, go for a walk in the forest, do some meditation, listen to peaceful music, and be silent, because you have so much, especially if you're afraid, you can have so much noise in your mind that somehow can oversteer the small subtle signals from your intuition. So therefore I said you should try to be silent and listen to what's going on down there in your subconscious, really.
Yeah, the idea of processing more quickly in the subconscious is very, very important. Hard for people to believe that. And that we have access to our mental atmosphere. You call it mental internet, I think. And I call it the psychosphere. Other people have different names for it. I call it the mental atmosphere. There's a bigger mind around each of us that has information in addition to what the subconscious mind has in it. And by being silent and going and turning off the outside world somehow seems to help make it happen.
And also, I think you can say, I know you have been into dance therapy, if I remember.
You remember correctly.
Yes. I think also, if that's also a long tradition in different spiritual tradition to use dance and rhythm. In Sufi traditions, the Islamic mysticism, you have lots of dancing and drumming and whirling, and also in other African, it's very obvious, and so you can the Sami shaman tradition, they use drums, because also if you use kind of rhythm, you can say synchronize your brain waves with the deeper levels of the mind, and that will also help you to say temporarily shut down the rational limitations of the informations in the subconscious mind and the psychosphere.
Yeah, we're kind of talking about the rational mind as a problem. It's not so much the rational mind. The rational mind will go in the direction we are talking about, is be more open to intuition.
Yes.
That is good rationality.
I agree.
It's a funny, these words always are a problem, but when we look at intuition, what kinds of problems are there for intuition? What kind of problems do you see people having with their own intuition?
Well, it's a really long theme, before going with that, I would say when I use the rational, I use not in a negative way. I'm a chess player, and I used to be quite good at mathematics, and so it's not I'm negative to the rational mind at all. It's just it's when you have to do some decisions, it's not all that is needed.
Yes, and that's really also, what we're. Yes.
Yeah, and also I must excuse myself, because English is not my first language, so I can be a bit clumsy with my choice of words sometimes. So
of course. I think you're making very good sense here.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And rational, I think what we mean by rational is distracting thoughts. Here we're talking about not being distracted, and people during a lockdown or not being able to go out very much, as happens, is also happening. They have time to be by themselves or with just their loved ones. So there is an opportunity during these times to be able to tune into intuition rather than being distracted by so much of the news, which is pretty much the same. It keeps getting worse, but it's the same idea. You've got to wear a mask. You've got to wash your hands. You've got to keep socially distant. And you've got to be careful of being in closed spaces with lots of people. And those are the basic messages out there. And everybody's not doing that in many places, unfortunately. But those who are can hear those messages and variations on it. But here there's an opportunity in this time to be able to quiet the mind and listen to the intuition. And my question is that intuition isn't all good either. Tuning in to what's inside of you can be tuned into things that may be problematic. And that's what I'm asking you to be able to tell us more about.
Yes, of course. I don't know if I should require people to seek a therapist, but that is also a good idea, of course, because somehow to deal with the crisis, but also to somehow to have a guide to dealing with the difficult themes that can surface during these times. So if you have a kind of humanistic therapist available, that could be a very good decision for many people, and that is somehow giving constructive perspectives, transcending both this current crisis, and that can be helpful for the rest of your life, really. So we take the crisis as an invitation to look inward and to somehow learn to deal with that with good friends and eventually a therapist. I think that could be a valuable investment. And also, I think this advice that I got from a Norwegian wise man many years ago, and that is you should always have one thing you look forward to during the day. That could be a meal, it could be a conversation, it could be whatever, but there must be emanate a light from that activity. So when you have some difficulties during the day, you look forward to that, and that can help you go through difficult times. And also if you somehow have, say, coming up something from inside, old traumas, anxieties, worries, whatever, focusing on that good thing that will happen, say, later this evening and something. So always plan something good for yourself that somehow can help you navigate through both outer and inner turmoil.
Very good. Very good. What I was referring to, you mentioned that anxiety, anxious thoughts can seem to bubble up from the intuition that I've got to worry about this or I have to worry about that. So getting in touch with intuition requires being able to tune out or somehow manage those anxious thoughts, so you have an opportunity to be able to hear what else might be in there, the sometimes called the still small voices that reside inside of us that are trying to get to us, but the other thoughts get in the way. We're coming to the end of this segment. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. We are talking to Terje Simonsen, who is the author of A Short History of Nearly Everything Paranormal, in our attempt to be able to figure out what we can help you do during this turbulent time. Welcome back to CC with BB, Connecting with Coincidence. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. We are talking with Terje Simonsen, our Norwegian author, about ways to use coincidences and other means to be able to manage life during COVID-19. How do you think about coincidences, Terje?
Well, as we touched upon, I think they are somehow organized from the subconscious mind. That the tip of the iceberg, say, is the conscious mind, and you have this big 9, 10. I will not say how much bigger it is, but much bigger. There is a small Terje that is talking to, but under the surface is the big Terje that draws on the resources from lots of experiences. Also genetic memory, I think. And then we have this collective psychosphere. You said, you mentioned, and I call it the mental internet, where we are connected to each other. So it's the big what is called the big chain of being. Really, we are connected to. We being a link in this really big network. So using that and trying to tune in, how am I? What is my role in that connection? That is using coincidence, I think, because we are connected. So it's somehow trying to get more conscious about how are you connected to that. You will feel, if you meet a person, I think everybody has experienced that. You just chat with a person and suddenly you feel it's somehow meaningful to speak about that subject, and you feel somehow you should go in that direction with the conversation, or other things like that with your children or with friends. And so it's listening to this intuition with because in a deep level also we could say there are no coincidences, there are just connections that we don't really know of. We call them coincidences because we don't have the full perspective on those. But if you listen to the intuition, you will find that what you thought was a coincidence in the normal sense of the word was really a connection that you just not had detected yet.
That's a nice way of saying it. A lot of people say there are no coincidences, but the way I've heard that is that they can all be explained either by God doing them, making them happening, or by probability. Those are the two phrases or explanations that make it not a coincidence, because something isn't a coincidence when you have an explanation for it. But you're just putting together something that I intuitively know. I mean, that's the nice thing about talking. You need words somehow to put labels on what you know, but without having to know that you know it, then the words help. And you've just said, well, there are no coincidences because they reveal connections that we don't know are there, but the connections do exist. Could you tell? I mean, I really like that because it's what I've been doing all this time, but I haven't been able to put it like that simply. It's because I know these are illustrating connections. And anyway, what do you mean by they are no coincidences? You told us a little bit. They're no coincidences, but they're connections that we don't know.
Well, basically, I think I was rephrasing a quote from Kafka, this great Czech author. And he said, let me see if I can remember the original quote here, more or less. He said, coincidences is the names we give to connections that are so complex that we don't overview them.
That we don't what them?
That we don't say have the full overview over them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's really the limitation of our perspective that say, oh, that's a coincidence, because from the, say, more broad perspective that they are connections still to be detected.
Well, guess what, Terje? That's my job.
And I think you're doing an excellent job at that.
Oh, thank you. You have just defined my job. I mean, I've been trying. It's a nice, simple way of saying it. And I like finding simple ways of saying it. Like I'm starting something called the Coincidence Project. And its intent is to help people tell each other, to encourage people to tell each other their coincidence stories.
Yes.
That's simple.
Mm.
It's understandable. And so to say this Kafka quote, which now that you're saying it, I've heard before, but haven't heard it in bold relief like this, that part of what I do is try to find how those connections are operating.
Mm.
And so instead of only saying we're all connected, I'm saying, okay, we're all connected. How are we connected? I am trying to help develop a cartography or a geography of the psychosphere.
Mm.
How are we connected to each other? How does that work? And that's what coincidences raise us to think about.
Mm.
And these hidden connections, what ideas do you have about them?
Well, it's an extremely big question, because if you're a Buddhist, you can say that karmic connections, you somehow your karma made you meet that person or end up in that situation or get that possibility. And that is a totally valid perspective, but of course it's difficult to say what is your karma really, if you're open to that perspective. So it's a very big question really. So I have come more to the practical things. As I said, listen to your intuition very much. Be still, do meditation, do some dancing, and use your instincts to feel. It's more important to say sense these connections than to somehow describe them in detail. So have become. It's a very good if you are able to make this map you're saying, but it's a very ambitious project. So I myself, my approach is very practical, and as I said, plan something good for yourself and listen to what we could say your true will and an authentic feeling. Why has Bob Dylan ended up where he has as a big star and people listening to him all over the world? He just come with a new record, even if he is quite old, and he's still going very, very strong. Of course, it's his. My perception, at least, is his very authentic person listening to his deepest intentions and deepest personal feelings. Of course, he is also talented from birth, that to a degree that most of us aren't, but I think his ethics in following his authenticity and true will and say authentic feeling, that is the secret for yes to connect with coincidence in that way. Also, I saw a very interesting interview, and that is on YouTube. The great American writer Cormac McCarthy, he has just given one TV interview with Oprah Winfrey, and he says you have to be dedicated, because he tells Oprah about great coincidences in his life, and she asks, how did you go about that? And he said he doesn't know, but you have to be dedicated. In the next segment, I could tell you about another coincidences of my own, if you like. But the dedication to listen to your own authentic will, and where is my direction in life? Who should I spend time with? For instance, which people build you up and set you on the track to your true self, and listen to navigate in that kind of daily life. That is my say main issue with the, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. You're so right to bring us back to intuition and not the mapping of the psychosphere that I like to talk about, because this is what we need now. People like you being able to say, you've got the opportunity now to listen to your own intuition. And you can look at models like Bob Dylan and see him at age 79, 78, coming out with a tremendous album that is full of his evolution of himself expressing what's going on inside of him in such a talented way. He has the method somehow to transform the intuition into something understandable by other people.
Yes.
We all have that capacity to greater or lesser extents. So we need to practice tuning in by being quiet and other methods to what's inside of us, and then being able to formulate that in ways to decide what to do right now. What am I going to do right now? Who am I going to call? What might I want to eat? What might I want to read? What might I want to be able to think about with someone else?
Exactly.
Where can I go that would be safe in these times, that still would be informative and helpful for my development of myself during these times and the people I love? And coincidences internally and externally can help guide us. We've coming to the end of this segment. This is Connecting with Coincidence on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. I am talking with Terje Simonsen, who is the author of A Short History of Nearly Everything Normal, Paranormal, and Normal. Welcome back to CC with BB, talking with Terje Simonsen, author of A Short History of Nearly Everything Paranormal. And we're talking about how to be able to use your intuition and its related phenomena with coincidences to help you in your managing the COVID-19 crisis in your own life. And the summary that I want our people to hear is: keep in mind what you have in mind to accomplish, what you need to have happen, and look inside as well as around you, because your environment will reflect hints about what you need. Intuition is not just internal. It is matching what's internal to the external, which is what coincidences are, matching the internal with the external. The information is out there. We don't know how it happens, but there is help available if you believe it's there, and believing is so important. And it's inside of you and outside of you. And Terje, we are going to now your story that you wanted to tell us that might be illustrative of all this.
Well, as I said, I heard an interview which is on YouTube where Oprah Winfrey was speaking with Cormac McCarthy, and he is a writer, a great American writer. And that was also I had just said to my editor, that was when I was going international with my book, that unless someone gives me a grant now, we can close the thanks section at the back of the book. And then I heard this. It's a long story, so let me just condense it here. I had applied for, as I said, I got one scholarship, and I applied for another scholarship from a Psychological Association here in Norway, and I had not got that for some reason. And but I was still moving ahead, and said yes, I want to go international with this book. And but of course I can waver, and you can get doubtful about the way and such things. But then I heard this interview where Cormac McCarthy told about strange coincidences in his life. He had not little money, but no money, and and then suddenly thing happened right out of the blue. And Oprah asked him, how did this come about? And as I said in the last section, he didn't know that, but you got to stay dedicated. So I meditated much over his words, and I was going for a walk in the woods here close to where I live, and thinking about what he said. And I said to myself, yes, for this period in my life, I'm a writer. I dedicate myself to this process. And 2 days after that, I suddenly got a phone call from a lady. I have never spoken to her. And she asked me, are you the person that applied for a scholarship from the Parapsychological Association here in Norway? I said, yes, I am. Yeah, she was a member of honor of that club, and she had heard that I had not been given that scholarship. But she felt that to be a shame, and I want to give this scholarship to you, and I will pay it from my own pocket, she said. So I got the scholarship.
Wow.
And I have never spoken to her. I didn't know her name and of anything, but probably by some friend sitting in the board on this organization, she had heard about this. And then I could move on and say to my editor, we have to open the tank list and give space for this last scholarship. And long story, but there has been so many strange and good connections with this book. A friend of mine, he suggested you should write a book about the book because it's so full of coincidences that has helped this for an international launch.
That's another variable here, that once you start immersing yourself in coincidences, they happen more often. And yes, that's what happened to you. You wrote a book that is essentially about coincidences, and call them parapsychological, but they are when mind meets external object. Coincidences tend to fall into three different categories, but based on only their two elements. Their two elements of coincidences are mind and object. And you get three categories from that, which is mind object, which tends to be I thought something and I got the money, which is what just happened. Mind, which is telepathy, among other things. And then object, which are sequences of the same object appearing, like the common one are numbers, but those are funny to explain. But a bunch of zebras happening because you saw one and you saw another. And I know somebody who sees thousands of monkeys in various ways, and that's her form of coincidence experience, because people experience different categories and subcategories of coincidences. So what we're talking about here is how paranormals are a subset of coincidences, and you immerse yourself in them. So what do you make out of that happening, that your experience, what does that mean to you, that by writing this book you had probably an increase in coincidence experiences?
Yes, I think so. As I said, it's about focus and dedication. If you tune into what is important for you, you generate more of the coincidences. I don't know why that is so. It could be explaining the first one writing about coincidences was Carl Gustav Jung, and he said you increase your psychic energy when you focus on what is important for you, and that increased energy somehow generates these things. It's up to you to make the good map for our time. But it's as an observation. It seems these connections will, say, be clear to or establish or be created more by people being strongly connected to what is important to them.
That's so key. Increasing psychic energy is the result of focusing on what's important to you personally, not what you're doing for somebody else, but what you could do for and finding that in your life is like such a prize, to be able to know what it is that you're here to do. I say that my job is coincidence studies. I mean, it's almost like I don't know how it happened exactly. Because I've had a lot of coincidence in my life, blah, 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 and I can explain it. But this is what I'm doing, kind of what you were talking about, Cole McCarthy, or you writing this book. This is what I'm doing. And you This is the second time today someone has told me that I am doing something ambitious. Which sounds like it. Oh no, it's too much work. It's too much work. Right now, I'm trying to write a map of the mind for psychotherapists. Because I heard you talking about what's the unconscious, what's the limit of it, that's a part of this. Is to include what the unconscious might be, or subconscious, collective unconscious, collective conscious. All those things we're part of now. And I want to be able to define it, but it's an ambitious project. I'm trying to finish. Anyway, I'm doing a lot now, and coincidences do happen. For me fairly regularly. So here's somebody writing about coincidences, talking about coincidences, and here I don't know, it's like crazy somehow. But this whole being dedicated like this is a little crazy making sometimes, because you just keep doing it because you have to.
I understand.
And how do you think this might apply to people out there in the world who are much less focused on some big idea craziness like you or me, that are practical? They're big ideas, but they're practical as well. What do you think in our last couple of minutes here we can say about how you come up with what is important to you during this time?
What gives you joy? That is the classic advice from Joseph Campbell. He said, follow your bliss. And some people thought that to be a superficial, and then he added, well, follow your bliss, as he said, with tongue in cheek. But what gives you joy in life? If it is fishing, if it is music, if it is conversation, if it is knitting, also find where you connect to your own inner joy. That is the main advice, I would say.
Where you connect to your own inner joy. And where you connect with other people who give you the similar kind of feeling.
Yes.
And although we are coming to the end of this, my major concern these days is not about the individual as much as about relationships among and between people, because that's where I see our major difficulty being as a human species. And being able to find ways to love each other in a positive way that's not crazy making, that's not makes people like fight with each other and conflict with each other, but to find ways to resolve those things so that we can connect and find the real joy that comes from interchanging with other people, not just in the regular love romantic thing, but in mental ways, in heart ways, in caring ways. It's there to be done, and the coincidences can help lead the way to them. So we've come to the end of our time, Terje. It's a delight talking with you.
Thanks a lot, Bernie. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, and I wish you continued luck with your book and everything else. And you've been listening to Connecting with Coincidence on the X Zone Broadcast Network.